What's up, everyone? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cassie. Today I'm just going to kind of do a makeup basics kind of video. I'm going to do a series of it, and I'm going to go from the ground up with foundation and primer and all your powders and all that fun stuff, and kind of go all the way up to do a full face. But I'm just going to kind of break it down for you. If you're a brand new beginner, I think everyone starts somewhere, and I know for me, when I started makeup, I was so confused by everything. A lot of the tutorials are just like, here's foundation and here's this and here's how to do the specific look, but they don't really tell you like why you pick certain things. So that's kind of what we're going to go over in these videos. So if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe down below, and let's get started. First, I'm going to talk about primers. I have a couple here just to kind of show off. These are some of the ones, this is the one I'm using now. This is one that I tend to use a lot. Angel Veil by NYX is very moisturizing, so it helps a lot for people with dry, flaky, or combination skin. If you have very oily skin, however, moisturizing primer is not always the best option. I also really like poreless primers. So it all kind of depends on your preference, obviously, but just to kind of give you an idea of what something will do, this is the one that I'm using currently. It's the Wet n Wild Glass Correct Primer. I use it because it is a green base, and if you know your color wheel, then green tends to cancel out red, which I have a lot of red in my skin because I have very mild rosacea as well as another skin condition that I can never pronounce that leaves like very flaky, almost dandruffy points like are on the sensitive areas of my skin. Now, if you have like yellow skin colors and things like that, green-based primers and green-based foundations are not going to help you out too much. You will find like color correction palettes and stuff that have maybe purple or blues. Those tend to be better for your like orangey or yellow skin tones. So kind of keep an eye out for those. So that's that. And when you apply a primer, you're going to apply it kind of like you do your foundation. You just put a little bit, like little dots everywhere. The only real difference is instead of using a tool, I just use my fingers to rub it in. It doesn't matter what direction, you are just rubbing it into the pores, so you can rub it in however you want. So after you've done your primer, your next thing is foundation, which I have the Juvia's Place I Am Magic Matte Foundation in the shade Maricout, which I really like. I've been using it a lot. At some point, I will probably try another foundation, but I really enjoy this. The reason I enjoy this and other foundations like this is I like full coverage. And you'll see that on the packaging. You'll see light coverage, medium coverage, full coverage. You'll also see things like buildable, and these all just tell you kind of what category they're in. So when you have light coverage, you're talking about like SPF creams, like BB creams and stuff like that. That it's very light, it's almost like a skin tint. You're not going to be covering up blemishes, but you're just kind of evening out the skin tone. Medium coverage is kind of an in between, obviously. It's going to cover up a certain amount, very mild blemishes and things like that. And medium coverages do tend to be more buildable. You will see light coverages be buildable, but they only go so far. You can usually build like a medium coverage up to almost the full coverage. When you have medium foundation, that's just going to even up your skin tone and it's going to lightly cover up any blemishes. But if you have anything that's big, like a big massive pimple or a terrible beauty mark or really, really red or uneven skin, it's still going to show that. It'll help cover it, but it's not going to like fully cover it. And both of these tend to be, like I said, buildable. And what buildable means is that you can add layers to it, and it's designed for that. So it won't get, unless you go overboard, it shouldn't get super cakey. Every brand is different. Some brands are not good about that, even though they say buildable, it'll still show up cakey, and that's kind of where you have to experiment with brands, but that's what to look for. Now, when I say buildable, I mean like another layer. Don't add like 8 layers because it's gonna look cakey. It's gonna look like you put 8 layers of foundation on. When you have full coverage like this, what full coverage means is it covers everything. It tends to be a lot thicker, very pigmented. You are prone to more breakouts with this. It is a lot less, it is more suffocating on the skin, or it tends to be, although every foundation is different, and I've had light coverage foundations that have made me break out. So, but it does tend to be a lot thicker and it sits in the pores, and it's heavier. You know, when you think of heavy makeup, you're thinking about like full coverage stuff. If you have even skin tones, you don't have a lot of you don't have a skin condition or anything like that, or you're very mild on breakouts, honestly, I'd probably go for a light or medium coverage, because the lighter you can go on foundation, the better. Just do what you're comfortable with, though. If you are just not comfortable with the coverage that a light or medium gives you, a full coverage is totally fine. Just be aware that the heavier you go, the heavier on the skin it goes, and so the more like you break out. Like, I tend to not wear makeup that much at all, actually, during my day-to-day life. If I'm at home or going to the grocery store or something, I don't use makeup at all, because of the fact that full coverage stuff will make me break out. Now, when you apply foundation, there's a couple of different ways to do it. You have your brush, which is just tends to be a flat brush, which is your foundation brush. There are other foundation brushes. I don't have a round one right now. I used to, but I don't use brushes for foundation very much anymore. But it's gonna look kind of like this, where it's very flat at the top, but it's round like this. So just combine these two, and it's like flat at the top but round. That is another style of foundation brush, which I actually prefer when I do use brushes. I like the round flat ones, but I don't really like using brushes for foundation, and I'm going to tell you why. So I'm going to do one half of my face with a brush and one half with a beauty blender. I want to go with the skin, or with the hair. Don't go up against the grain of your facial hair, because it's kind of, foundation acts almost like a gel, and it will just kind of like gel your hairs upwards and look really weird. It won't quite look cakey, but it will kind of give you almost a cakey look, and it's really hard to fix that. So the good thing about brushes is that you can get right into these creases with it really easily, or these like around your nose and stuff, like those little thin areas, and you can just kind of get right in there with no effort. The downside is sometimes you can leave brush marks when you're brushing down. So sometimes you kind of want to pat around, especially if you see any brush marks, just kind of pat them out. This is my EcoTools. I actually really like EcoTools. They're not the greatest brushes ever, but I like them because they're like biodegradable and stuff. Like, this is a biodegradable beauty blender, which I am all for, cruelty-free and biodegradable stuff and all of that fun stuff if I can. So beauty blenders, you just pat it in, right? You just go real quick, pat, 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 and you just pat it into the skin and into the pores. You can do a little bit of like this motion, but you don't really want to do too much. You really want to like pat it in. So the thing I like about beauty blenders is two reasons, really. One, because it's a sponge, you can see how much product it kind of picked up on that. If you accidentally put extra product on your face, it does kind of absorb it. The other thing I like about it is I tend to get a smoother finish. It's not like, you can't get a smooth finish with a foundation brush, but it's a lot less work for me personally. But everyone is different, and if you like brushes, go for it. So after foundation, what you'll usually use is some kind of concealer. I have this Pretty Fresh from ColourPop. This is a very dewy concealer. There are full coverage concealers, which I tend to prefer, but if you put a full coverage concealer on a full coverage foundation, you can sometimes end up with cakiness. When you apply it, you're just going to apply it in your under eye, and usually your high points too. So on your nose, right here, right here. And you can use a foundation brush or a beauty blender. I always use a beauty blender. And you just pat it in just like your foundation. What concealer does is it just brightens up those points, because those are the points you're going to put your highlighter and stuff. You want it a little bit lighter, brighter, things like that. Kind of show off the angulation of your face and keep those dark under eyes from showing too much. That's the end of this video. We're all set. If you have any ideas for another video, leave a comment below. I love to read them. I finally figured out that my phone cannot answer them, so I will actually answer them now. And I will see you next time. Bye!